Welcome to the Emotional Eating Unwrapped podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, an emotional eating and weight loss coach for women looking to fall in love with eating, create healthy attachments with food, and lose weight sustainably. Hello and welcome to another new episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, and today's episode is going to feel a bit personal, not just because it's about food, but because it's about the parts of us that were shaped long before food ever became an issue in our lives. Today, we're going to be talking about the roles that we inherited even before we knew they were roles. We're talking about the expectations that you may have absorbed, not because someone said them out loud, but because you intuited them, you felt them deeply, consistently. And if you're someone who felt like food is your only escape in this moment in time, as an adult woman, if you've ever had the experience where you've had a heightened emotional experience at work or, on the subway or in your car, and the next thing you do is you go to a gas station and you get a snack and you sit there in your car and eat it, right? If you've ever binged in secret after holding it together after a long day for everyone else, right? If you've ever gone to food and used food as an outlet, right? As a secret, then I want you to know that this episode is for you. Because this episode, we've talked about, eating in secret before and binging, but this episode specifically is about the invisible job that you never signed on for, you never applied for, you never said, yes, this is me, this is what I want. And it's about understanding that healing from emotional eating, healing from that feeling of compulsion with food, feeling like the food noise is in your head 24/7, the constant negotiations that you're having with food, with eating, healing that is more than just changing what's on your plate. It's more than just changing the substance that is food. What healing is releasing the role that you were never meant to carry. Okay? It's one of the pillars of healing. Okay? It's one of the pillars of healing. It's releasing that job, that role that you never signed up for, you never agreed to, and you're most likely not meant to be carrying. And so many women, if you're listening to that and you're like, yeah, maybe that is me, like, and you're kind of starting to awaken to the fact that things that you and ways that you behave on autopilot might be roles that you have subconsciously just accepted and are doing on autopilot, like I said. And so many women that I work with have been living their entire lives in an identity that they never consciously chose. Right? So maybe you're listening to this and you were the helper, the peacemaker, the manager, the coach, right? The organizer, the one who kept it together when everything was falling apart, right? Perhaps you felt like you needed to make it look like everything was great. Everything was on track. Right? You learned how to read the room before you ever learned how to connect to your own self. Right? Now we have a word for that. It's called hypervigilance. Right? You learn to anticipate other people's needs, soothe other people's emotions, and disappear your own emotions and needs. Right? We have a word for that now too. It's called codependence and enmeshment. Right? And the truth of the matter is you got good at it. Right? You got good at it and it became comfortable for you. right? Slowly your body, your mind started, your conscious mind started to file away maybe the disconnect that it might have felt when you were too young to even know you were disconnected. Right? And so over these years, you got so good at it that it became who you really thought you were. Right? The easy one, the reliable one. And not to say that maybe you're not that sometimes, right? Like you can be reliable and also sometimes not be reliable and still be someone who's reliable, right? You could have needs and not be someone who is needy, right? But suppressing these parts of you and taking on this role, it came with a cost. It continues to come with a cost. Because when your identity, when your self-value that you believe is your self-value in the world, and ultimately where you pull your self-worth, when you believe that to be tied to being good, being strong, being selfless, being needless, you learn very early on that your humanness is too much. Your needs are inconvenient. Your desires are a hassle. And that your hunger, whether that's for food, for rest, for love, for space, right? You learn that that is something that needs to be quieted or tucked away. And so you find a place to put all of that. And eventually over time, for those of us that are here listening to this episode and are in the sober eating world, whether that's in the mentorship or listening to this podcast, very often that place is food. And that's because food doesn't talk back. Food doesn't give us an energy back. Food doesn't have nonverbal communication that even if they don't say something, we feel it. Right? Like food doesn't have that. It doesn't judge. Right? It doesn't need you to perform. And so in a world where everything you do, your role is about being something for someone else, food becomes the only thing that's for you. Okay, food becomes the only thing that is for you. So let's talk about that moment. Right? Let's talk about that moment in time at the end of the day where everyone's been fed, emails have been answered, expectations have been met, you've made everyone feel good, right? There's no more, stimuli coming at you. There's no more fires to put out. And suddenly it's just you. Suddenly it's just you with all of this energy and charge, combination of energy and charge, hypervigilance and exhaustion. And it just feels like a lot. And it feels kind of all mushed together. And no one's there. And there's the pantry, there's the fridge, there's the million of food apps on your phone, Uber Eats, Caviar, Seamless, DoorDash, right? So many. 1, 2, 3, click. And even though you might have told yourself earlier on, or maybe it was yesterday, or maybe, it was the starting over Monday mindset where you're not going to do it again. You do, but not because it's about hunger or there's something about the food, right? It's not even usually about the food. It's about having something that is yours. It's about taking action, engaging in something that's yours. It's about reclaiming a tiny piece, a tiny slice of autonomy in a life where everything else might feel borrowed, expected, or accounted for. Right? So that late night snacking, the zoning out in front of a movie with chips, right? Like where you feel like you can't just relax and watch a movie without also eating and doing, right? The moment where you say, screw it, right? It's your nervous system's way of saying, I need relief. I need out. I need a break from this role. But what starts out as relief, what starts out as something that makes you feel resolved and content and kind of like, oh, okay, I'm here. What starts out as that feels like it's embodiment, it's not, it's a prison. It becomes another type of prison, right? So this is the crux of the thing, right? We use the food to feel our sense of embodiment, but ultimately what it does is it doesn't create authentic embodiment, which is something that's enriching. Instead, it becomes another kind of prison because the food isn't enriching you. Like I said, it's not soothing you in a purposeful way. Instead, it's holding your secrets. It's holding your unmet desires, your unmet emotions. And so the more you hide with the food, because you're weaponizing it in this way, the harder it becomes to actually feel what you're avoiding. I remember what it felt like to be stuck in the cycle of emotional eating. I tried every diet out there, counting, tracking, restricting, but nothing ever worked. Food controlled my life, my thoughts, and I constantly felt guilty after eating. But once I learned how to heal the emotional triggers behind my eating and trust my body, everything changed. I stopped obsessing over food, the weight started coming off naturally, and I found real freedom in how I ate and lived. So, I created the Sober Eating year-long mentorship to help other women experience the same transformation. So you can stop battling with food, you can lose weight without deprivation, and you can feel confident in your body again. In this mentorship, you'll have access to my proven nervous system rewiring method. You'll have access to live coaching with me, weekly accountability, and a community of women who truly understand your journey. You'll also have free access to my signature programs, the Emotional Eating Solution and Decoding Permanent Weight Loss, valued at $2,000. Click the link in the show notes to explore the mentorship today. You don't have to do this alone. I'll be right there with you every step of the way. And then what happens is, after this episode, when it comes from this place, there's guilt that comes. There's shame that comes. And the more guilt you carry around what you eat, the more you are reinforcing this shame, right? The shame that made you reach for the food in the first place. And it is this loop, right? This is the loop. And if you're listening to this and, maybe it's feeling very close to home and, but I really wanted today to get in the moment of this loop, right? A lot of times I really only do this in the mentorship where we just get into someone's experience. So I really wanted to get the opportunity today to really bring us into this experience so you can really get inside it and realize that what happens in this loop and this feedback cycle is that this really fleeting moment of relief ends up keeping you stuck in captivity, right? It ends up keeping you stuck in captivity because you start to believe that the only way to feel peace is to sneak it in secret. You feel like you have to earn your enjoyment. You're only allowed to have it when no one else is looking, right? That's what this dynamic with food and eating is representing. But I want to offer something else? What if the food isn't the problem? Right? So a lot of times we focus on the food. It's like I have to take the Uber app off my phone. I have to figure out a new way to eat. But do you see how this isn't about the substance of the food? It's really about your self-perception, your identity, and the fact that there's somewhere inside of you that believes that your humanness and your personal joy and your unique joy that you want to have needs to be done in secret. Otherwise, it's inconveniencing everyone else. And it translates into so many different areas. And food is one of them, right? But what if food isn't the problem, like I said before? Right? What if the problem really is that you spent so many years of your life tending to other people's needs, being convenient for other people, and you've never really learned how to tend to your own while also being able to tend to other people's needs? Because this isn't like a binary thing. And I think that's where sometimes a lot of people get tripped up, right? This isn't a black and white thing. It's not like I take care of my needs or I take care of other people's needs, right? This is a interdependent situation. And it's a skill that you have to learn. This is a skill. It's like, how do I grow the capacity? So what you're doing now is you're shrinking the capacity. You're compartmentalizing the capacity. And therefore, the only space that's left for you is in secret. So the work isn't about food. It's about expanding the capacity of your humanity, of your nervous system, of your ability to hold. And this is the healing work. And this is where it gets beautiful, but it's also where it gets hard because it's not as simple as just fixing food. It's not as simple as just changing how you eat. It's about changing how you see yourself. It's about changing how you move in the world. It's about separating who you are from who you were trained to be. And I won't lie to you, it can feel really disorienting at first. And there's going to be a huge part of you that is going to resist, right? Because when your identity has been built around, care, sacrifice, performing, holding it all together, learning to prioritize your own needs and your own kind of desires and your own messiness, right? I'm not talking about having clothes on the floor, but like your own humanness, your own wants. It can feel selfish and it can feel inconvenient and it can feel even dangerous. And it can expose you to feeling vulnerable and feeling judged or having a conflict. And these are things that our nervous systems, when they're not used to it, can feel really scary at first. But like any training, you have to start building up that friction in order to get stronger, right? The conflict becomes, good because that friction is creating strength, right? That feeling of discomfort is good because that friction is expanding your capacity, okay? Because your value and your worth is not measured by how little space you take up. It's not dependent on being easy or agreeable or low maintenance, right? The world isn't going to fall apart if and when you stop overfunctioning, right? And thinking 4 steps ahead. And so as you start to reorient your life, this is a life thing. So as you start to reorient your life, not around your role, but around your truth, you'll notice something unexpected, right? You'll start to eat differently, not because you found the perfect plan, not because you're forcing control, but because you're no longer using food to rebel or to rescue yourself. Okay, it's really important. And so learning that truth is the work, right? And that is the work that, I do with all the women I work with. It's figuring out your own truth and then building the blocks of expressing that truth and then embodying that truth and being that. And that's when you start to notice the unexpected, like I just mentioned, right? You're creating a home within yourself, right? And within that home, there's a lot of space. There's a lot of permission. And then food gets to go back to what it was always meant to be, which is enjoyment, nourishment, and not a debate in your head constantly. And what happens here is that then weight naturally releases, right? The unwanted weight naturally releases. Okay, but you need to be you need to be consistent with this, right? A body and a nervous system that's been, in a role for years that's been causing nervous system dysregulation, weight, hormone imbalance, a non-optimized metabolism that causes weight gain. This type of change where you're going to start to see the physical changes is not going to happen right away. You need at least 90 days of consistency in this new way of living, and just understanding the new roles you have, and just understanding the roles you have to let go of, and just understanding your truth isn't going to get you the result. You have to start living and making decisions and creating boundaries from that new truth, from that higher self, consistently for at least 90 days. Then you start seeing, right? At least 2 months, right? I would say like at least 2 months to start seeing results physically. Emotionally, you'll start seeing results right away. But for some, physically, it takes 2 months, 90 days, like I said. Okay, but after 5, 10, 15, 20 years of living one way, like that's not that long. So you got to stay consistent. So so just to end, if you've been listening to this and you've been eating to escape, to rebel, right? If you've been holding it together for everyone else and inside you've been, quietly falling apart in your own way and using food to help piece you back together, let this conversation and this episode today be a reminder that you are allowed to put the roll down. You're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to be a full feeling human woman who eats, rests, has desires, and exists outside of, everyone else's expectations. Because the more that you honor what's real to you, the less you'll need food to speak on your behalf, to piece you back together, to make you feel like you are real. Okay, this is the real work. This is the real work. And I'm so honored to be sharing this work with you today. I know this episode was really, deeper. And so I really honor you for listening. And I'm excited to chat with you again next time. And so if you are watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Please subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify and Apple, also please subscribe. And until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.